Hey, Bloomington Normal. It is the Ryan Mack Show. I am your host, Ryan Mack. Phone number 309 451 9299 is the number. You can text in today. We're going to have an awesome conversation about a famous speech that took place this time every year and it happened this week. If you missed it, Joe Biden gave a State of the Union address in front of Congress, and it was very ravishing. I mean, I couldn't have been more pleased with the performance. He was riveting. He was excited. He was truthful, although none of that was true at all. So here's what we're going to do. I want to talk about the speech, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to break down for you a little bit of history of the speech in general, and then we'll go into parts of his speech this week. So the first in-person address was given by Woodrow Wilson way back in 1913. Including Joe Biden's speech, there have been a total of 99 in-person speeches. It used to be called the Annual Message or State of the Union. In 1945, FDR's address was read to a joint session, and since the president did not deliver the address, it does not count as an in-person address. So, address, okay, whatever. But since the inception of Wilson's first in-person speech, there have been 87 total in-person speeches delivered. So the origins of the speech, the formality of the speech itself, has been inside the Constitution. So it is written in the Constitution, Article 2, Section 3, Clause 1. The President shall, from time to time, give the Congress information of the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. The constitutionality mandated presidential message has gone on through a few name changes. So it was formerly known as the Annual Message from 1790 to 1946. It began to be informally called the State of the Union Address from 1942 to 1946. And since 1947, it has officially been known as the State of the Union. Earlier messages of the president included agency budget requests and general reports on the health of the economy. But during the 20th century, Congress required more specialized reports on these two aspects, separate from the annual message. Budget message, required by the National Budget and Accounting Act of 1921. Economic report, as required by the Employment Act of 1946, with a flexible delivery date. And then over time, the message content changed. The focus of the State of the Union also changed. In the 19th century, the annual message was both a lengthy administrative report on various departments of the executive branch and a budget and economic message. After 1913, when Wilson revived the practice of presenting the message to Congress in person, it became a platform for the president to rally support for his agenda. There's been a lot of technological changes as well. Radio, TV, and internet further developed the State of the Union into a forum for the president to speak directly to the American people. So technology changes. First radio broadcast by Calvin Coolidge, 1923. The first TV broadcast was Harry Truman in 1947. The first televised evening delivery of the message was Lyndon Johnson in 1965. First live webcast on internet, George W. Bush in 2002, and the first high-definition TV broadcast was also George W. Bush in 2004. Recent holders, the longest, so these are the recent record holders, the longest speech was Jimmy Carter, 1981. 33,667 words. Good Lord. And also, that was written. Spoken, 1995. Guess who? William J. Clinton. The shortest, George Washington in 1790. That's about how I felt Biden's speech this week should have been. It should have been about 1,000 words. Average length, 10,000 words. During the late century, about 5,000 words. Most ever given, Well, that was FDR. 10 speeches, 10 personal appearances before Congress. The fewest messages, President Zachary Taylor, 1. Harrison and Garfield, also 0. All right, so there's a little bit of a history of the speech in general. I didn't know a lot of that history, so that was kind of cool to learn about the changes over time, as we should change the speech and the format because of times have changed as well. All right, so now fast forward a little bit to this week. Now you're sitting there thinking to yourself, why did you watch it? Well, I had to because I wanted to have content for today's show. But sometimes I like to watch presidential speeches just for the reactions of Congress and the speech itself, the reactions from the president as he gets jacked up for some of the things that he talks about. What I was impressed with, Joe Biden, was that he didn't seem to stutter a whole lot. He actually was composed for the most part. He had a few angry moments, but I mean, as a positive note, he really was kind of juiced up a little bit. Now, I don't know if that was steroids or the juice cocktail they gave him beforehand or some of Hunter Biden's Coke. I don't know what could have been. So, if you're like me, you have a lot of reactions. If you saw it, he lied. He got angry at Republicans. Republicans jeered back at him over some of his lies. It was a mess. I mean, if you're a Democrat watching his speech, you just went, yes, 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 he does such a great job. Yeah, naturally, it's a partisan reaction when he speaks. If you've got a Democrat in office versus a Republican in office, it's going to be more of the same. Democrats are going to be sitting on their hands and so on. He had some guests in the crowd. Couldn't really recall the Ukrainian ambassador's name. Struggled with that one. Didn't even know it. So that was interesting, but that's par for the course under Joe Biden. So reaction-wise, I wasn't really sure what to react at first. I just thought it was ridiculous how he doesn't really give a truthful response to what is happening in our country over the last 2 years, or even the last year since his previous address. The man lies, and not to say that politicians don't lie. They lie all the time, but to things to which this administration has lied about that can be evenly and easily proven to be truthful and false is insane. So I scrolled so many sources. I heard a lot of the reactions from other talking heads, and I came through an article by The Federalist. And they've got 15 whoppers of the State of the Union address. So this was by Tristan Justice and Jordan Boyd. You might have come across it either reading it or just seeing it shared. So he gets up there. He mumbled right away and just couldn't get the words out of his mouth. So he was trying to beg Republicans to pass the Democrats' wish list. You know, he had several parts of his speech that he was begging, hey, pass my agenda. We'll get this done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. And he repeated that, knowing full well it's not going to happen. Republicans in the House aren't going to pass his agenda anymore. That's why they won the elections they did, so they can stop some of this nightmare from happening, right? Well, it got worse from here. So here are 15 lies the president told during his speech. Number one was funny because it was kind of little, but it was still there. Chuck Schumer is the minority leader. So before his speech even began, he greets Chuck Schumer and calls him the Senate minority leader. But Chuck, as you all know, is the majority leader, and he has been since Biden has taken office. Number two, more jobs created in 2 years than any other president. So this is classically Joe Biden done. He has taken everything Trump has done and claimed it as his, or removed Trump's name and from the books and said that he's done all the economic work. The problem with number two is that he didn't create the jobs that he said he did during his speech because the pandemic was going on while he came into office. And so more than 10 million of his jobs that he claimed were recovered. They weren't newly created jobs. So when he says, quote, I actually created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs, more jobs created in 2 years than any other president has created in 4 because of you. The problem is he didn't create the new jobs. The only reason the job rate is growing and you have the unemployment rate is 3.4 is that millions of people have returned to work after tyrannical Democrat leaders during most of the pandemic shut the country down and still had it closed while he became president. He took office and there were still states, California, Illinois, still issuing mandates and declarations of emergencies well after the pandemic had already been roaring through. So it wasn't that he created all these new jobs and everybody's just heroic and his economy is working. It's broke, Joe. Build back broke. That's exactly what you did. So, yes, I was perplexed just about as anybody when the new jobs report came out. But you had to take a deeper dive into the numbers, as always, with this administration. He likes to spruce up the numbers as if he did such a miraculous job. But he has to remember, bureaucrats and Democrats alike have closed this country down, and you're seeing the jobs being recovered. Nothing is new. So you have to take that into consideration. Number 3, fastest growth in 40 years. Man, I would love that. Except that it wasn't true. He repeated this throughout the speech, that he initiated the fastest job growth in 40 years. However, if you take a look at records, from May 2020 to January 21, under Trump, it grew by 12.5 million. During this same period, according to this post, according to this article, the unemployment rate also declined by 8%. We were coming out of a pandemic. That's what was happening. In January alone, payroll jobs under Biden fell by more than 2.5 million. So he's not growing anything. The economy shrank 2 consecutive quarters during his presidency. The mere fact that he says he's growing is a flat-out lie because the numbers bear them out. You look past some of the numbers in the job report. Payroll fell. A lot of part-time jobs have been increased because people are getting multiple jobs because they can't afford the things they have with their primary job. So they're getting a second part-time job. The idea that he's growing anything is ridiculous. I can't believe this. Hey, stick around. This is the Ryan Max Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to the Ryan Max Show on Cities 92.9. You can text in anytime. Feel free to join in the conversation today. We've been talking about the State of the Union address given this week by Joe Biden. Now, 309-451-9299. Feel free to text in, be a part of the show as always. I appreciate that. I like your feedback. So we've been going through a list that's compiled by the Federalist article here of the 15 lies that Joe Biden told during his speech. So we are continuing at number 4 when he said that inflation is coming down. I don't know about you, but this administration has a tendency to count inflation by the month. And while month over month it's coming down, year over year, it's still up over, I believe, 7% at this point. Now, it did peak at 9 earlier last year, but it's still up. In fact, it is up from Trump's administration when he took office. Biden took office, inflation was 1.4. So this repeated lie during the speech that inflation is coming down yet again shows how stupid he is and how stupid Democrats are for believing it. They'll just sit there and seal clap. Oh, yeah, that worked out really well. Yeah, it's coming down. Everything's fine. That's what the message was. Everything is fine. Everything is not fine. We are swimming in more debt from federal spending over the last 2 years. We're swimming in prices gone through the roof. Nobody can afford groceries. They can't afford gas. They can't afford to heat their homes. None of this is going down. So 2 years after the president signs off on all this Democrat spending spree, we still can't afford gas for our car. It's up over $3. Well, he said it's lower. Yeah, it's lower from its peak last summer, which in fact is going up again, and it might reach $5 again this summer. It's ridiculous how much he lies about everything every day. I can't afford the gas in my truck when it was $5 a gallon. I know there are people out there that drive even more insane vehicles and have worse gas mileage. There's truck drivers that spent well in excess of a few grand just to fill up their trucks. Diesel's outrageous still. So here we are, weathering a recession, paying 60% more for eggs than we did in 2021. But Joe Biden said we have the fastest job growth in the last 4 decades. Inflation is coming down. I'm doing that. This is mine. I'm doing this. This is me. That's what he wants. But when he fails, it's Trump's fault. It's Republicans' fault. But when he succeeds at something that wasn't in his control, he's going to take credit for it. Remember this. Again, during the speech, he blamed the nation's misfortune on the pandemic and, quote, the unfair and brutal war in Ukraine. Problem is, again, the war wasn't our fault. It's not causing prices to go astronomical. This president's policies have caused everything to skyrocket. When you are hostile towards energy industry, everything is impacted. And I'll get to that later on in the segment about him hammering the oil industry, saying we need to use it for 10 more years, and then everybody just laughed at him. This is seriously a sick and twisted individual. He thinks that he's done just this remarkable job, and we all know it to be false. He's done the worst job. It's insane. Number 5. Democracy faced a greatest threat since the Civil War on January 6th. Here we go again, the speech this week. He forgets about the attack on 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and the repeat episodes of violence at the Capitol when he claimed the riot on January 6th was the greatest threat since the Civil War. Funny. If you've watched the speech, or if you've seen clips of him talking, you see the reaction from McCarthy sitting behind. And by the way, thank God Nancy Pelosi and her falling out dentures weren't behind him this time, fake clapping and running around like a seal. McCarthy rolled his eyes about 100 times during every part of his speech because he couldn't believe the crap that was coming out of his face. But especially after the moment when he said that January 6th was the biggest threat since the Civil War? Are you serious? Come on, man. I can't. I don't know if I have the energy for this. Number 6. I'm responsible for the largest deficit cut in U.S. history. Really? Let's take a dive at that one. So he always wants to take credit for cutting the national deficit by, quote, more than $1.7 trillion, the largest deficit reduction in American history in his first 2 years. Remember that? He always says that. Then again, he says, under the previous administration, America's deficit went up 4 years in a row. Because of the record deficits, no president added more to the national debt in my 4 years than my predecessor. Okay. The problem is that, again, federal spending not only increased, but increased by more than $10 trillion. That's right, trillion with a T in his first month alone in office. More than any other president spent in his first 2 years in U.S. history. So again, he can't tell the truth. He never cut the deficit. He has grown the deficit. Within his first 2 months, he spent $10 trillion. Who voted for this? How can you sit there as a Democrat, as a liberal, as a progressive, and go, yeah, everything's fine. I voted for that. What is wrong with you? I can't fathom my brain cells to realize and think about that there are people who voted for this man. I don't even think it was for him. I think it was for the fact that it wasn't Trump. That's really what it was. I get it. Trump was in your brain 24/7. You hated him with your every ounce of your body. But this demented, dementia-ridden old man stumbling, mumbling his way up to the stage, and then angrily yelling at times, not making any coherent statements whatsoever when he does it. This is what you voted for? You can't afford eggs. You can't afford your gas to heat your home. You can't afford gas to drive in your car. Oh, wait, you have a Tesla. Never mind. You're all good. Just boggles my mind how you vote for him. Again, if you're tuning in, hearing into my incoherent at times, my rants, my angry rant filled on this speech and the lies that this man continues to tell. This is the Ryan Mack Show. I'm Ryan Mack. You're listening right now from 2 to 3 on Cities 92.9. Feel free to jump in and express your anger just about as much as I do right now. 309-451-9299. Let me know how angry you have been watching this speech, if you did watch it. If you're not, you're getting the snippets here as I'm bringing it to you. So the list goes on. Again, I'm covering 15 lies from the article that I came across, The Federalist. They had a brilliant job of breaking down the things that he said that were misleading or just downright lies. So, number 7, he said that Republicans are trying to cut Social Security. And you heard, if you watched it, and you've seen the highlights from it, the lowlights actually, that all the Republicans called him a liar and they yelled at him, and it was factually, let me just tell you right now, Republicans have never said anything about cutting Social Security or Medicare. Those programs are going to go insolvent and bankrupt, not by anyone's doing. The problem is Democrats over the last, 20 years have cut out the largest working class in history. It used to be a ratio of 16 to 1. 16 to 1 workers to retirees receiving Social Security. Now, it's 2.5 to 1. Nobody's paying into it. So therefore, after the current system runs out of money, no one's paying into it to cover it. It won't sustain. There has to be immediate action done by Congress in order to prolong this. Otherwise, it's not going to be anybody cutting it. It's just going to run out of money. And it's going to be both parties' fault for not doing anything about it to stop it. There's nothing to cut. It will run out of money by itself. But nonetheless, Joe goes on. He pledged to halt desperately needed cuts to bloated entitlement programs as Congress debates raising the debt ceiling. If anyone tries to cut Social Security, he said, I will stop them. I will stop them if they try to cut Medicare. You see, and you hear the roar from the audience. It's not going to happen. However, what did cut, the reconciliation bill that the Democrats passed last summer, took nearly $300 billion, with a B, billion from Medicare to boost insurance companies by removing leverage from negotiations on drug prices. So he's claiming that he's going to protect anything from being cut from the Social Security and Medicare. And his bill that became a law last summer is taking $300 billion from Medicare to boost insurance companies. Joe, it sounds like you're the one taking money from Medicare. Weird. I can't. Number 8. Fires have burned an area the size of Missouri. This one got me laughing because he tried to claim that more wood had been burned by forest fires than an entire area and state of Missouri. The problem is that if you were paying attention, Missouri is about 4.5 times the size of the area in which he said burned. He quoted, more timber has burned than I've observed from helicopters in an entire state of Missouri. Again, a grossly over-exaggerated statement. 2022, 7.5 million acres burned, according to the National Interagency Fire Center. Missouri's forests span 14 acres. That's double. And the state itself is 44.6 million acres. So where is he getting the fact that the entire state of Missouri just up and just fell? It roasted. The entire state of Missouri just got bombarded with fire. Again, grossly miscalculated his speech here. He said that the entire state was on fire. And again, the numbers bear themselves out. All you have to do is Google. Just go to the National Interagency Fire Center and you'll see Missouri is 44 million acres. So seemingly the state didn't burn the whole size. Fires didn't rage the size of Missouri. He's wrong. Another example in which he just flat out lies. I don't understand how people continue to believe this guy. He made this off script from what the White House released, part of the speech. So he goes off script and decides to just say everything burned. Hey, stay right here. This is the Ryan Mack Show with Ryan Mack on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, welcome back to the Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9. Feel free to text in on our conversation today. We've been talking about the State of the Union address. We gave a little bit of the history earlier, and I'm rolling through a list of lies and just flat-out debauchery during Joe Biden's State of the Union address. We are coming in at number 9 on the list. I got this from the Federalist. Again, text in 309-451-9299. Feel free to chime in and give me your thoughts on the speech. If you watched it, if you didn't, if you saw some highlights, the lowlights, the reactions from videos you've seen, or just the overall impression of how he did, feel free to let me know. So I've been railing down this list and giving you my own input as I go through it. We're at number 9. Again, I'll put this up on my Facebook page. This is from the Federalist. They've done a really good job of breaking down his speech in general. And so I thought I'd break it down for you today too. So he claims this next claim. I laughed because I used to work in retail and I used to work in fast food briefly. This was many years ago, many moons ago. I know I'm only 35. Number 9, when Joe Biden claimed that fast food workers had to sign non-compete agreements, I almost fell out of the chair because I've only recalled in my life, and I've worked mostly retail customer service type jobs. And aside from one, I think that I had that wasn't really retail, but it was a customer service job. That was the only place that I remember, I think, signing a non-compete form, saying that you cannot go take another job in the same industry and blah, blah, blah. Fast food is not one of them. I can assure you that. If you work at McDonald's, as he makes this claim here, you can go across the street to Subway or Dairy Queen if they hire you for more money and just walk in and take that job. There's nobody at McDonald's forcing you to sign a non-compete waiver. Again, the man can't tell the truth to save his life. Everything he tells is a lie. So he makes this outrageous claim that fast food workers were signing non-compete agreements with employers, which has never happened. All the stories, there's a super cut out there of all these stories that he's told in his life, and Dan Bongino compiles a list and compiles a segment called The Things That Joe Biden Has Never Said or Done. That's one of these could be said. In the history of fast food, no one makes you sign a non-compete letter. So he quotes, this is him saying this. A cashier at a burger place can't walk across town and take the same job in another burger place, make a few more bucks. This is what he said. Yes, you can. What idiot says this? I don't understand. I don't know if he was having a brain fart moment. I don't know if he just let that one slip. I think it was one of those off-the-script moments that he was trying to make a big deal about non-competes and taking care of workers, except he went way out of left field and fell out over the fence. He also made this claim in 2020 when he was a candidate and earned a false rating from PolitiFact. If you earn a false rating from a left-leaning place like PolitiFact, you know you've said something stupid and false for PolitiFact to call you out. I mean, does he think he's really getting away with this? I mean, the Republicans don't think so because they yelled at him the entire night. Number 10. This one, it boggles my mind. Biden blames crime wave on COVID after Democrats defunded police. This idiot goes on stage, continues to blame COVID as the reason for crime wave increases. I'm sorry, but the last time I checked, viruses don't cause crime. However, the response to the pandemic and the measures that Democrats in some of these states have caused has spiked the crime wave. Like the BLM calls to defund police after instances that happened, that might have spiked crime. The fact that we have Democrat mayors in these largest cities just letting out criminals like a free-for-all, that has spiked the crime. You're not policing. Police departments have always been defunded. They've always been underfunded, and they've always been short research and short resourced. They can barely handle the things that they were given, and then you had Democrat mayor after Democrat mayor and governors strip them of even more resources, only 2 years later to come back and say, you know what, we need to funnel more money because we don't want to be a part of this anymore. The fact that you had to reverse that policy and give police agencies more money shows how stupid of an idea it was to begin with to lead after an organization that told you needed to fund police. You did, and it didn't work. So he says a lie again. He does this again. The virus doesn't cause crime wave, Joe. Your policies do. Your defund the police movement that this Marxist ideology has become to champion, that is what spiked crime. So he blames it on the lockdown for the nation's recent crime wave. Because I don't know about you, when I was locked down, man, I just thought about nothing other than stealing Nikes from Michigan Avenue Nike store and thinking that how much I could feed my family with these pair of Nikes. That's what I thought. I mean, I really couldn't get any better than that. Oh, wait. That wasn't me. I was trying to find a job so that I can feed my family bread so that they wouldn't have to go through and find a box of Nikes to steal. That's what this was about. If you were stealing food during the pandemic because you couldn't afford anything, I'd understand. I don't have a dump button. A cough, sorry, excuse me. But you're not stealing food to feed your family during a pandemic lockdown. You're stealing Gucci purses and Louis Vuitton and Nikes so that you can sell them on a black market and make money. That's what you're doing. So there's no doubt. Look, I get it. COVID left scars. Okay, there's loved ones died. You couldn't see your grandma. You couldn't see your grandpa. You couldn't go near anybody that had COVID. You couldn't go to nursing homes. It left an emotional scar. It left it a very physical scar for some people who had COVID and even survived and had long COVID. I get that. But the response to the pandemic hurt us and has continued to hurt us more than anything the virus itself. They have to remember that. You have to remember that. These people locked you in your home. I remember. I was there. I was a substitute teacher. That's an essential job. But when you're a sub, it's not guaranteed anyway. So when the school is not in session, there's no guaranteed job. So, and that's because the government said, nope, sorry, no school, no work. So I was locked in my house because Governor Pritzker decided I wasn't essential. So I wish people would remember this, and I hope they do, but the midterm numbers didn't show that. During the speech, you see time and time again, he lies about everything. The violent crime spike in the 2020 and going into this year had nothing to do with the stupid virus. Democrats rushed to defund police, left cities and neighborhoods vulnerable to criminals who remained free to roam the streets. Democrats in Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and New York, remember? They all cut funding, like I just mentioned. More than a dozen cities saw the highest homicide rate ever reported as a result from this. And again, according to a poll from Politico last year, 3 in 4 Americans blame the crime spread in the efforts to defund police. Again, it comes back to policies. You told police departments, you can't do your job anymore. You don't need that money. We're going to take that money and give it to the poor. Except they didn't give it to the poor. They funneled to other Democrat needs and wants. That just continues to go on. If you're just catching in today, this is the Ryan Mack Show. This is Ryan Mack. We are going over the State of the Union address, state of the, you know the thing. Joe Biden gave a speech this week on how great the economy was and how great our country was and how much his policies are working. And the simple fact is they're not. I can't afford groceries. I can barely afford fuel in my vehicle. I can't afford to heat my home. I'm one of you. I started this podcast, started this show, because I wanted to be a voice for all the little people out there, because I'm one of you. I'm affected by everything this policy and this administration has done. This decrepit socialist, this Marxist idiot, has been pulled so far to the left, he'll say anything. He's really a puppet. He has pulled everything to the ground, took everything that Trump did policy-wise, and drove it straight in the ground, buried it, stomped on it, peed on it, took a crap on it, and then flipped it the middle finger. That's what this administration has done to your retirement, to your savings, to your job, to your livelihood. And I want you to remember this as you go forward in your life. When you go to fill up your tank you can't afford. When you go to put heat and pay your gas bill for your home, when it's 3 times as much as what it used to be. Remember this. We have to remember the things that Democrats cause in order to learn, hey, I don't think I want this anymore. I should probably change how I vote. It's no more simple than that. It's insane, the level of stupidity that goes on. Number 11, and I think I might get into this in the next segment. I'll carry on here. You're listening to the Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Ryan Mack Show on Cities 92.9. Text in 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. We've been talking about the State of the Union. Do you know the thing, that one thing that people do when they speak up in front of Congress? Yeah, that speech. We're breaking down the Joe Biden disaster that was the State of the Union. And I've been talking about an article I came across this week from the Federalist. And they broke down 15 things that Biden said during the speech that were flat out lies. And I'm giving my own input as well from some of these wild claims. So we're up to number 11. There are 15 of them. We're almost getting through these. So if you haven't seen it yet, you can just go watch the highlights and catch most of these yourselves. Or you can rewatch the speech and glue your eyes open and try not to shut them, or your ears. All right, so his claim, we are number 11, he re-upped funding for cancer research. Now, if you don't remember, one of his top priorities going into the speech this week was his Cancer Moonshot Initiative. Under the Obama administration, he was headed up this research and care fund. He quoted, "Jill and I reignited the Cancer Moonshot that President Obama asked me to lead." Well, he restarted the program to benefit support for parents and patients and families. But it was his legislation that, you remember, the Inflation Reduction Act that they passed that he so lovely and ecstatically claimed would reduce inflation and reduce the burden on the American people. Except it also cut his cancer research because it spends 9 times, it cuts it by 9 times as much as his program was supposed to put it toward it. So he has this funding that he set aside for Moonshot, and his favorite, the Democrats just foaming at the mouth, the Inflation Expansion Act they passed, actually cut research to this initiative he claims that he wants to restart. Weird, Joe. You want to restart a fight to end cancer, except your other bill that you championed cut funding by 9 times as much. So good luck with that one. Let me know how that turns out. Number 12, immigration reform will secure the border. So if you watched it, you'll know that he mentioned nothing about China, nothing about securing the border, nothing about the balloon, just none of that. Just how great our country was doing. This economic plans are working. Everything's fine. Everything is peachy. Vote Democrats always. Except his new border plan, he says, is working. And he's finally doing something about the millions of illegal border crossings flooding the United States. But his plan, he was going to grant legal status to those crossing from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, only emboldens the corrupt cartels. And he thinks it actually is going to stop the pipeline of fentanyl coming into the country, taking American lives. Several people during the speech pointed this out. It's his fault. We wouldn't have a drug problem in this country if he secured the damn border. That's the problem. And you can say it's secure all you want, but we have 2 million people coming into the country, and you have enough fentanyl to kill about 10 states. That's a problem. Your actions speak more than your words. Your lame duck idiot Secretary of Border Security, whatever the title is that he is, he's not doing his job. That's how important it is that I call him by his actual title, because he's not doing his job. If I didn't do my job, I'd be fired. This man and everybody in the administration, they have not done their job, and yet they get promoted somehow. It's really weird how that happens. His comprehensive plan would fix the national security threat that American border has become. But here's a problem. His plan would encourage more millions of migrants coming into the border and overwhelming the agents that are trying to keep these organizations and immigration under control. 13. Mass shootings went down after the assault was banned. Now, this one boggles my mind because the 1994 assault weapons ban did nothing. It didn't do anything. They let it sunset after 10 years. He claims the Republicans let it expire. No, they let it expire because it did not drop crime at all. And he wants to ban more. Absurd. 14. Life-saving pro-life laws are extreme. No, they're not, Joe. They save lives. He wants to pass more abortion laws and chastise the Americans and states that became more important in the fight to save life and pass more abortion bans and restrictions. His outright national ban is not true. It's just not true. It's not happening. And 15, claiming to be a president for all, but he demonized half the country by calling us ultra-MAGA Republicans and terrorists. He's not a president for all. He's a Democrat. He's a progressive, lying nutbag, and he hates half the country. That's really who he is. So there's your 15 lies the Biden administration has given you during the speech. There's 2 other highlights I want to briefly get into this before we wrap it up. But if you missed it, I happened to watch in and look live, and Jill Biden walks right up, plants a giant wet one right on the lips of none other than Kamala Harris's husband. Now, that's a sight for sore eyes. I caught it live, and I vomited like Ace Ventura did when he kissed a man. I mean, it's all out there. The memes are already out there. It's insane. The other one is Biden said that he had a living wage plan. The living wage is the most Marxist idea that he came up with, and it's a further note that he is being pushed further to the left. Marxism has this idea that living wage, it doesn't matter what you do at your job, doesn't matter how good at your job you are, you all get the same living wage, and living wage is different than minimum wage, no matter how the argument try to frame it. It is different than a minimum wage. Where do we have a minimum wage? This is different. This is a living wage. No matter what your skills are, no matter what you do at your job, everybody gets the same wage, livable. It's going to crush the economy, crush the country. There's no other way around it. This administration is breaking you, and it's going to get worse. I hate to say it, but it's going to get worse. It's just going to continue to get worse, and we have to find a way to curtail his train wreck. And we will. The Republicans have control of Congress. The debt ceiling is not going to be moved unless they make spending cuts. Hey, I'll see you next week. This has been the Ryan Mack Show. I'm Ryan Mack. Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. See ya.